Is your mind on your money? Is your money on your mind? As the world teeters on the brink of an economic apocalypse, we tackle an even bigger problem: the price of games. Plus, we give some failed franchises a second chance, and the Games as Art Camp gets some new ammunition with the PS3's Flower. Like a leaf on the wind, the GameCritics.com podcast starts right now. Welcome, friends, to the 12th episode of the GameCritics.com podcast. I'm your host and moderator, Tim Spaeth. It's a pleasure to be with you. Let's introduce our cast, and we'll start with the horror geek himself. It's Mr. Mike Bracken. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Tim. How's it going, guys?
It's fantastic to have you, Mike. How have you been?
I have been okay. Just playing a little Star Ocean 4, some The Dark Spire, and ready to do this show and kick some ass.
All right.
So let's do it.
I
We
love
missed
it.
you in the last. We missed you in the last episode, Mike. What happened, man?
Yeah, there was a problem with our taping schedule where I'm a creature of habit and expected it to be at the time we usually record and didn't realize it was an hour earlier. But it's amazing because now we switch time again today and I'm here on time, so everything's cool.
Oh, really? You're late again.
Yeah, so I'm really sorry I missed out on that. I really wanted to be a part of that show, so it's good to be back, though.
And of course, as a result, Mike, I took the brunt of Nathan Fout's anger and hatred towards us. So,
I swear it wasn't intentional. I didn't.
Right. Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
Mike.
Thank you so much. Well, let's go to the opposite coast and introduce our friend and yours, Mr. Brad Gallaway. Hello, Brad.
Hey, Tim. Hey, guys. How's it going?
Super.
How have you been, sir?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. Just kind of laying low this weekend. Just kind of hanging out, doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I'm raring to go for tonight.
Outstanding. Well, last but not least, it's the founder of GameCritics.com, our commanding officer, our general. It's Chi Kong Lu. Hi, Chi.
What's up, Tim? What's up, man? Why am I getting introduced last this time? I put together this site. This is the thanks I get. Okay, fine.
It's mixing it up a bit. Think of this as, at the end of the credits, the opening credits of a movie, it says, and Robert Redford, or
All right,
and Robert De Niro. You're
Sure.
our Redford and De Niro.
Sure. I'll take the and.
All right, fantastic. We appreciate it, Chi. We appreciate all that you do. Well, on tap this week, even the worst games can show some minuscule hint of promise. Maybe it's a gameplay innovation, maybe it's the license, and all of us have brought some examples of games that we'd like to grant a second chance. And later, we're going to take a deep dive into the subject of game pricing with a focus on used games. In recent weeks, we've seen Amazon and Toys R Us jump into the used game market. Publishers aren't happy, and we'll talk about the impact and what we think publishers maybe should be doing in response. So we'll get to all that later. First, the PS3's downloadable sensation, Flower. According to some, it's an early contender for Game of the Year. We asked what you think about Flower at the GameCritics.com website, so let's start the discussion with a comment from our frequent show contributor, Hargrada. Hargrada had this to say, and I quote, "I was skeptical, but there were enough raves about Flower online to convince me to pay the $10. And after finishing it in one sitting, I'm really glad I did. It's a gorgeous, emotional roller coaster ride that held my attention from start to finish. I loved every minute of Flower." Do you agree? Disagree? What do you think of Flower?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Hargrada said. I don't know so much that it's going to be Game of the Year for me, but I think it is a really important title and a really interesting one. For people who are not familiar with it, it is a downloadable game on the PS3. It's been put out by That Game Company. the developers who also crafted Flow, which is actually one of my other favorite games on the PS Network. And in a nutshell, what happens is you basically play like a single petal of a flower, and you fly around a field and a little forest and stuff, and you pick up other petals and you just kind of just go around. I mean, it's really hard to explain what the game is about without really giving it away, but a lot of it is really experiential. Um, but really, in a nutshell, that's what it's about, and it's a really interesting thing because it's not really a game in any traditional sense. Primarily because you don't really push any buttons. It's all controlled by the motion sensor inside the PS3 controller. So you really kind of just tilt and swirl around with the wind. There's a real kind of natural kind of feeling to the movement.
But you do have to push the button, right, Brad? I mean, in order to accelerate a little bit faster.
Yeah, that's true. You keep that one button down. So, okay,
Yeah.
you hold A button down.
Yeah, you can push any button. It's kind of just like almost arbitrary.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know why they even had you do that. I mean, you could have like mapped that to tilting forward or back or anything. But anyway, so the point of it, to me anyway, and I think this is kind of one big question, is I think everybody's going to get something different out of it. What I got out of it was that it was a way for the developer to kind of sidestep traditional gameplay in order to communicate. I don't mean to sound frou-frou, but it kind of communicates feelings, or just like a general idea or a sense. There's nothing really concrete about it, and really it's very open. So you kind of get out of it whatever you put in. Like if you invest yourself into it, it can be a really rewarding experience. It starts out very idyllic and very peaceful. The game kind of takes you through an emotional arc, and at the end there's kind of a little bit of struggle, and I would even say kind of a redemption. I don't really want to give too much of the game away because it is a very short game. I mean, I think Hargrada was really right to play it in one sitting. I would definitely recommend that anybody who downloads it do play it in one sitting. You'd be missing out if you broke it up into multiple sessions. But it's kind of a full circle emotional experience. I mean, what did you take from it?
Well, just one thing about what Hargrada said. I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I wouldn't quite describe it. Excuse me. I wouldn't quite describe it as an emotional roller coaster. I mean, a roller coaster has its ups and downs, and it's definitely got this emotional factor going on. But it's not like you swing back and forth like a pendulum, right? I mean, do you agree with that?
I think there's definitely a change in tone. It starts out one certain way, and you think you're gonna be all. You think you know how it's gonna go, and then it kind of doesn't go where you think it's gonna go, and then I definitely felt as though things kind of got, I don't want to give away too much, but things got dark for a little bit, and then
Sure. Mm-hmm.
and then you kind of get brought back up out of it. So I would sort of, on a roller coaster with one big hump, maybe not a corkscrew or anything.
Sure. No, I agree with that. It's not quite a big roller coaster, but yeah, there is a little bit of a twist in there. In regards to what you said about the feelings that this game brings up, what that reminds me of is what artists in the 19th century were sort of going for when they were trying to capture this element of the sublime with nature. There's a long history of artists, with like J.M.W. Turner, Friedrich, Thomas Cole, and guys like that. And this flower sort of just reminded me of those artists, really, and that feeling that you get when you're sort of just in awe of nature, really.
Well, I would definitely agree with that, Chi. I think one thing that I found personally interesting was that they stripped so much of what gamers expect out of it. Like, there's no real points. Like you said, I mean, I had completely forgotten you even needed to push a button. I mean, you push like one button to accelerate a little bit. And there's no... There are a few concessions in there, but overall, I mean, it's a real stripped down feeling. But instead of feeling empty and bare, it just feels... It feels like it's where it needs to be. It feels very simple, and it feels very straightforward and very like open. And I think that in itself is really worthy of praise because it shows that games are maturing as a medium because people are doing more things with them. And I think that maybe doing more is by using less. I mean, the very fact that you don't need all those extra things, and it still works, and it still is a really positive, rewarding experience, really shows that as a medium, people are really starting to look at it in a different way. And I would also say, if anybody out there listening hasn't played Flow, I would also really recommend that one as a game to look at in terms of pushing the boundaries of what you expect. I played through that game. I thought it was a wonderful experience, one of my favorite PS3 games, and it shares a lot with Flower in that it is a deconstruction of what you expect. In that particular game, you're like a I don't know, like a microbe or a small, one-celled animal or something like that, and all you do is eat other animals and grow larger, and that's all it is. But it's really captivating, and it really draws you into the experience in the same way that Flower does, where you just have. If you looked at what the formula was on paper, it doesn't seem like a lot. It seems like it's even boring, actually. But when you're actually playing it, you are taking on this kind of, I'm trying to not sound completely cheesy here, but I'm finding it hard not to. But it's like you're taking on this journey. And as you go on this journey, you realize you don't need all those trappings. You don't need all those cutscenes. You don't need a bunch of big guns. You don't need people dying. It just does this little thing, but it does it so well that it's impossible not to get caught up in it.
I totally hear what you're saying, Brad, and I think it's a great point about the whole stripped down thing, because Flower really made me reconsider like why I enjoy games to begin with. We play these games to enrich ourselves in some way. And when just the games that are out today, you get caught up in, exactly like you said, the textures and the guns and all this other nonsense. And really, at the heart of it, you really don't need a lot of that stuff. And Flower was just a great reminder of that for me.
Absolutely.
So you've both described Flower. You've described it as a game that, in fact, to use your words, Brad, the developer tried to sidestep traditional gameplay. If I'm not a gamer, if I don't understand traditional gameplay, can I still appreciate this game?
That's a good question, and I think it's a really valid one, and I hate to give you the answer because I haven't really done any scientific research or anything. I'm just going to go with my gut on this one, but I would say no. I think you need to know about games before you can really get the most out of it, because as someone who's played a ton of games, I've been so steeped in game culture and game design and game tropes and game mores that to see something that takes it all away really makes me appreciate what lies underneath it all. And I may be completely wrong, but I would think that if a person wasn't familiar with all that stuff, they wouldn't really realize what was gone, and they wouldn't really realize how well it works that stuff is not there. I think, just gut feeling here, I think they would find it to be too simple and maybe would miss the point. I mean, it's kind of a statement about subtraction, and if you never knew what was there in the first place, how can you appreciate how well it works?
I think that's true for us, but I'm going to disagree with you for two reasons. One, I've been observing my son play a lot of DS games as of late, and I'm a pretty good judge of the stuff he likes and doesn't like just based on history. And I think he would totally love Flower, and he's a preschooler about to turn 4 in June. I think he would totally love Flower. Just the way you would manipulate it, I think he'd totally be able to get it. And I think he'd love the flowers, he'd love the color, he'd love the animation in general. So that's that. And as well, but I think also anyone who has a general appreciation for nature, and again, that whole sublime feeling, it's a universal feeling, I think, to be in awe of nature. I mean, I think we can certainly train ourselves to appreciate, the dark stuff, and we have the horror geek with us here, who I'm sure can speak a lot about darkness here, right, Mike?
Definitely.
But when it's all said and done, I think we still, we all go to the Grand Canyon, we'll take our breath away, and I think Flower is one of the few video games that to really capture that. So I think people will enjoy it on that level. I do think certain people that have really high expectations I was going to say about gamers in particular, but then you weren't talking about gamers. But I guess if you were talking about maybe teenagers that didn't like abstract stuff, then this game may be a turn off based on that. But that was my only caveat to that, I guess.
Okay, so I have a question if I can jump in there and ask it. Is the game art? I've read a lot of stuff over the past week or two where people are banding about the three-letter word art again, and I haven't played it, so I'm curious. Are these guys who are comparing it to all these lofty artistic things that it supposedly does, are they right or are they reaching?
You want to go first on this, Brad?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'll take it. Yes, I would say it is. But then again, with the caveat that I think most games are art of a sort. I don't really want to get into that whole debate about what defines art, but to me, I think most games, well, okay, maybe not most, but some are definitely art, and I would say that this one is. Um, it's not like I want to like frame it in and post it in the Guggenheim or something like that, but what they're doing, it sounds again cheesy, I know, but it's almost like a poem. It's not really a game. It's not really like you do a whole lot. I mean, it's kind of just like this experience, and to me, it's like Chi said, I think his comments about the sublime and about nature are really accurate. I mean, I think really the thing that grabs you is kind of the sense of wonder, the sense of freedom, the sense of just kind of being in this place that's so beautiful. And I think it is art. It is art and a statement about it's communicating to people in a way that you can't really communicate through a written poem or even through a movie or through a book. I think this is an expression that can only be had by the artist or the developer putting the player in a situation that they have to experience in a very, interactive way. So I think in terms of a new medium of a human experience, yes, this is art to me. This is like interactive, immersive art. Yes.
I mean, first of all, Brad, what you just said about the communication part, that was beautiful, first of all. I think you hit it. That is well said, first of all.
Well, that's good because I forgot what I said, so I'll have to go back and listen to that.
For myself, I mean, I'm finishing off a draft of my review of Flower, and what's interesting is I felt very compelled to refer to the developers as developer artists, and I said that a couple of times throughout the review, and I just couldn't help it. I think as I said earlier, when you frame it in the context of what artists have done in the past, with from the 19th century on, and that whole romantic period, I just couldn't help but to call these guys artists. So for me, it's a definite yes on my part. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and even going further, I mean, what is the point of art in the first place? I think if you talk to any serious artist, and I'm not talking about video game artists, I'm talking about any artist, like sculptor, painter, whatever, like almost to a man, they say they want you to feel something. That's the point of art, is they want to transport you. They want you to get this feeling. They want to communicate to you somehow through their sculpture, through their brushstrokes, through their color choices. That is absolutely no different whatsoever from what happens in Flower. I mean, these people want you to feel something. That's blindingly obvious. So I don't see how somebody can say it's not art. So to me, the question is just black and white. It's absolutely yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. I was just curious because, like I said, I've been following the discussion about the game for like the past 2 weeks or so, and I've heard a lot of talk about things people think the game means and talking about it as art, and art is in games is one of those buzzwords that sometimes people toss around a little too lightly, I think. So I was curious if this actually lived up to that. The discussions were, the assessment was accurate or not. So apparently it is. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I know people looking for meaning in the game is a little, it's a little misguided. I think
I actually read someone who was trying to compare it to like the Christian missionaries spreading the gospel or something. I thought that was kind of a reach, but I was curious how it actually just stacked up otherwise.
Well, I think that's one good quality of any art, isn't it? That it's open to interpretation. I mean, I think the very fact that people can read the Christian mythos. I mean, you could also say it's about like any number of other things, but I think the very fact that it's so open and lends itself to that is definitely in its favor. So.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's more an abstraction, which is why I don't try to read so hard into any of the symbolism. But yeah, it's interpretable, sure. Mm-hmm.
Well, gentlemen, any last thoughts on Flower before we move on?
Download it.
Download it.
Sure.
Available on the PlayStation Network. Arguably one of the best ways to spend $10 on your PS3.
For sure.
Let's change gears. Let's change gears dramatically. And I'm going to turn to Mr. Mike Bracken. Down in Florida, you are indeed the horror geek, yes?
Last time I checked.
As such, you are very well versed in all things horror.
I like to think so.
Probably more so than anyone I've ever met in my 19 years on this earth.
19, huh?
So
Hey, I thought it was 8. It was 8 years last time, Tim. Did you do a Benjamin Button thing on us here?
I am indeed doing the Benjamin Button thing on all of us. I'm mixing it up. This show is all about mixing it up. Well, last month, Mike, a pretty big horror movie came out, Friday the 13th. A lot of people have heard of it. A lot of people have seen it. You reviewed it. But it wasn't just the movie Friday the 13th that you were thinking about, was it?
No, actually, Tim, it wasn't. I have this sort of interesting life because aside from doing game reviews and gaming related writing, I'm primarily a film critic who specializes in horror movies. So I get to like have all the fun stuff, horror movies, games, all at the same time. So one of the things that's been happening in movies a lot lately is the idea, especially in horror, of taking old movies and remaking them, whether they actually needed a remake or not. So Friday the 13th is the latest in a long line of remakes. So as I was sitting there watching it, I started thinking, well, okay, they remade these movies. Maybe there are games that they should remake. And I thought, instead of taking games that are great or that people love, like everybody wants a Final Fantasy VII remake type deal. Well, big deal. I don't want to talk about that. That's not that interesting. Instead, why not take something that was crappy the first time around, but was interesting despite its crappiness, and say, man, why don't we have a remake or a rebooting of this franchise in from a gaming era past into the present? And what naturally springs to mind other than the 8-bit Friday the 13th game on the Nintendo Entertainment System? One of the
Of course.
yes,
Of course.
Friday the 13th, it was just amazing. It was an epiphany. All the pieces just fell right into place there in the theater for me. It was like alcoholics call it the moment of clarity, and I was just in it. So basically, if you've never played Friday the 13th on the Nintendo or watched the Angry Video Game Nerd review of it on YouTube, which I highly recommend checking out because it's funny. It was not so much a platformer or side scroller. It was like a hybrid 8-bit game where you could switch between a bunch of different camp counselors running around Crystal Lake trying to fight Jason. It's a horrible game. It's awful. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Zombies pop up out of the ground despite there being no zombies in Friday the 13th. There's a note that tells you Jason is afraid of fire when never in any of the Friday the 13th movies has Jason ever been afraid of fire. But then it makes it convenient so you can pick up a torch and throw fire at him in the game. And I've never beaten the game, but I used to play the hell out of it because it was a horror game back before survival horror games were popular or any good. So, and
Hey, the big question is, were you a horror geek then?
yeah, my horror geekdom actually started very young. So I've been interested in horror films since I saw Jaws at like 6, and I saw Halloween at like 6. So since I've been 6,
Man, where were your
I've-
parents, dude? Jeez.
yeah. So, but yeah, so that got me to thinking. Here's a game that sucks. It's terrible. There's no getting around it. But why haven't they made a modern Jason video game, or why haven't they taken Nightmare on Elm Street, the 8-bit video game, which was made by the same company and was a crappy platformer where you had to collect Freddy's bones and throw them into a furnace to kill him at the end? Why haven't they taken those and like put them in like a Silent Hill type of setting now, where we have the graphical technology to make these games look amazing, guys understand how to make survival horror games. Wouldn't these be great franchises? Instead of seeing like Saw is getting made into a video game, why not do You're on the
They're
Run
doing
from Jason?
Right. They're doing Ghostbusters, for God's sakes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that was just what I was thinking, about games that deserve a second chance, and I was curious if you guys had any, games from your past that you thought sucked, but you have some kind of affection for it, or that you would like to see updated into a more modern incarnation where maybe they could get the things right.
Sure.
I'm glad you brought this up, Mike, because I take a lot of shit sometimes for liking games that are really under the radar or are purposely obtuse, and that they just kind of float my boat. First of all, I do want to second your vote for Friday the 13th in two ways. Number one, that game was absolute crap, so I think you picked a really good one. And number two, I would love to see it done well. I would love to see it, given some justice. So I'm with you on that. I'm not going to pick a horror game though. I loved. Okay, maybe love is a strong word, but I got some enjoyment out of Mr. Mosquito on PS2. I'm not going to go all the way back to the NES, but Mr. Mosquito was developed by Zoom, and I don't even think they've even done anything else. But the concept in that game was you are a cartoonish mosquito, and you're in this house with this family, and it's your job to, naturally suck blood from the family. And they're doing all these crazy things, and at first you're just kind of an annoyance, but as the game goes on, they start getting like more and more extreme in their reaction to you. And it was fine, and it was okay, but the controls were really crappy, and the camera was crappy, and it was a little too cartoony, and it was over the top in a way that I didn't really appreciate. But I liked the concept. I'm really a fan of bugs, and I think that like the Insect Kingdom is something that developers really don't touch enough. So I was thinking with modern day systems, all the technology we have, all the graphics capability we have, a game like that could be pretty cool. I mean, there could be lots of different applications for the mosquito besides just sucking blood. Although I think that in itself is kind of cool. I mean, but imagine if your mosquito was like a robot mosquito or something, a cyborg mosquito, and he was like a stealth character. Like, think how cool it would be to be in a real human-sized environment, and you could look for a hole in the screen door and you get inside or something, and you gotta do all these different things. I really like the dichotomy of having a really small character around like big people or big objects, and just kind of clinging to ceilings and hitching a ride on somebody's back and they don't know you're there and that kind of stuff. I mean, to me that seems like a really cool thing, and I'm surprised that developers really don't tap the Insect Kingdom more. I mean, they already look like aliens. They have all kinds of weird abilities and powers, and they have all kinds of built-in natural weaponry. It seems like a natural fit. I mean, there's really not a lot of games out there that do it though. So
that wasn't what Deadly Creatures was about.
Deadly Creatures on the Wii, where you play a tarantula and a scorpion. You do control those bugs, and that is a pretty good game. I did like that game. But you spend a ton of time in the desert, and it's pretty realistic in the sense that most of what you're doing is eating other bugs, which is okay. Right. But I like the alien intruder in the human environment. To me, that's really exciting and really interesting, and I think there's a lot of potential for fun gameplay moments.
Yeah.
And I don't think. Oh, what's that?
That sounds like a Chibi Robo with more action in it or something, right?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think that. Crawling up from a toilet and scaring somebody could be kind of fun, or trying to find a good shadowy corner to hide while someone's trying to swat you would be kind of fun. I think bugs are kind of cool, and I think they could be pretty fun in games. So I'm kind of disappointed people haven't done.
They could just take the Manhunt Shadow engine and put it in a mosquito game.
Exactly, make it like a spider, a spider or mosquito or something.
When I think I think of a mosquito flying around, I think motion controls. Would you want motion controls with your game, Brad, or would you want to stick to this traditional?
I hate all motion controls. I never want motion controls in my game, so I'm going to say no. But I would take it. If that's all there was, I would take it, but I would vote no.
Guess this isn't going to be a Wii game then, yeah.
If it's a Wii game, I want the classic controller. I do not want to use that thing around the Wii.
That's an interesting choice, because I too like Mr. Mosquito, but looking back at it, it hasn't aged particularly well, and there's a lot of untapped potential in that game that somebody could go along now and I mean, it kind of would be maybe a tough sell here because it's got quirky Japanese game written all over it, but that's a good idea though. I would definitely be on board for that.
Cool. Chi, what's on your radar, man?
Sure. I was thinking more in the lines of what Mike was talking about, and sort of those iconic characters. Or well, my pick isn't so much an iconic character, but a real person, which is Bruce Lee actually. And first of all, do you remember any of the any Bruce Lee games out there that you might have played? Or
I remember the dragon one that was from the movie on Super Nintendo that was really awful.
Right. Mm-hmm. Brad?
I thought there was one on Xbox, but I have to be honest and say I'm not the biggest Bruce Lee fan, so I'm only kind of getting little glimpses of it in my head. I couldn't
sacrilege.
You're right. There was one. It was called Quest of the Dragon. And I think that one had the blessing of Linda Lee Cadwell as well, the widow, Bruce Lee's widow, but unfortunately that didn't help. And yeah, there's been, and there was one, I think there was also one for the Commodore 64, which when I remember playing as a kid, it reminded me nothing of Bruce Lee. It was like you jumped, it was like some strange platforming thing where you collected lanterns, and it was just completely bizarre. But so there wasn't any one particular Bruce Lee game that stood out in my mind, but yeah, they all basically kind of sucked. And I think the mistake that developers always make with Bruce Lee is that they treat him like sort of this mythic superhero and not really try to look into what made the man who he is. And I think any game that is going to explore that, you have to sort of first of all look at his art, right? Jeet Kune Do, and his whole philosophy, absorbing what is useful and discarding what is not. And when I think about that, two things come to mind. First, is Mega Man, right? When you sort of beat the guy and steal his powers, right?
Wait, dude, that was a leap, man. That would not be the first thing that I think of.
No, I actually thought of maybe Highlander before that, but that was a stretch too.
Highlander the game?
Yeah.
There's a game?
No, just yeah, there were Highlander games. There was one on the Jaguar that was based on the crappy cartoon. So that's one they should do and redo and do it right. So.
Well, again, I was talking about the way Mega Man, when he beats his opponent, he steals his powers and all that, and so I thought that was kind of an allegory to that. And the other thing I was thinking a lot about was the God Hand, which we recently all played, and the way you can customize the character's attacks and all, and I thought that was both of those elements would fit perfectly into Bruce Lee's philosophy and martial arts. And the other thing go ahead.
See, like if you were to sit down with the developer and say, hey man, I'm commissioning this Bruce Lee game, and what I want to see is X, Y, Z. Like, what would your premise be? Like, okay, you got Bruce, but then what would the gameplay be like, or whatever? I mean,
yeah, because as soon as I think about it, I just start thinking of Rise to Honor with Bruce Lee instead of Jet Li in it.
So I think the funny thing about the way developers have always gone about it, they try to create some kind of wacky 70s story, and they sort of make it all supernatural, try to bring in the whole chopsaki element to it. And I think that's a mistake. In my mind, I would try to make it as close to his life as possible, which would be so the premise of the game would be basically to open up a martial arts school and to try to recruit students. And I see this playing.
Sim? It would be like a management.
No, it wouldn't be a sim. That's a funny thing.
Sim Bruce.
It's
Populous with Bruce Lee.
Right. I actually saw it more as more like a Grand Theft Auto, where he's going around like beating up other masters, increasing his influence and thereby getting more students, or he's just randomly helping people out, increasing his popularity. And the ultimate goal is to like hustle his way into Hollywood and become a movie star. So that'd be my take on it.
Interesting.
We have to get Chi talking about his game development ideas more often because this is golden stuff here.
Yeah, this is brilliance, dude. It's going in a direction I never would have anticipated at all.
No, I had no idea we were going this path when we started.
See, now it's my, and Chi, if you don't mind me jumping on the Bruce Lee thing, my vision for a Bruce Lee game. Do you remember the scene in Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, where Bruce Lee he's typing on a typewriter, and the typewriter has electrodes attached to his pectoral muscles?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So imagine that. And now, you guys know that game, The Typing of the Dead?
Yeah.
All right. So you merge.
Brad did a review of that.
Yeah. You merge those concepts. So you have. That's all I've got. All right.
What?
I thought the goal was to get larger pecs and kill zombies while typing at the same time.
It's just to build Bruce Lee's chest, and like words fly up on the screen, and as you type them, electricity shoots into his chest, and his chest gets bigger, and then it.
That'd work on the Wii Fit on the Wii, an extension of the Wii Fit.
A balance board attachment. It's going to be peripheral coming up soon.
Right.
It'd be like Bruce Lee's training game or something like that.
Bruce Lee's electric nipple clamps.
There you go. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail the Bruce Lee talk. I'm sorry. So, Chi, did you have anything more with Bruce Lee?
Nope, that was it.
Okay.
I mean, we probably maybe
Yeah.
you guys are right. We can throw in a sim element to the whole recruiting students as well. Sure.
So I wanted to stick to another media franchise. Are you guys aware that there has not been a GI Joe game in 17 years? Like nobody's even
I,
tried.
I can't imagine why.
Isn't that insane? The last
Yeah.
two were on the NES, and it was a pair of Contra style, basically Contra clones with incredibly clunky controls. And that's the last that we've seen of GI Joe. I mean, in that amount of time, we've had how many dozens of bloody awful Transformers games, but no GI Joe games. So the one
I'm
element,
sorry to say, Tim, but Transformers is just better than G.I. Joe, so that explains that right there.
I
some
kind of think both of them suck personally,
Well,
but that's
No,
just
whatever, dude.
Hey.
You're off the show. See if you come back next week. You're gone, dude.
I'm gonna bridge the gap here, man. I collected both Transformers and GI Joe. So.
as did I, as did I.
Was-
But
It was all about Star Wars and He-Man here when I was a kid.
see, the one element I really liked about those NES games, the gameplay was terrible, but it gave you the option to assemble your own team of Joes to tackle each stage, and everybody has their own personal favorite GI Joe, except for Brad, who apparently can't be bothered to even consider it. But so here's what I'm proposing: GI Joe by way of Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Hmm.
That's actually a pretty enticing idea there, Tim.
So, because the GI Joes, they're effectively superheroes anyway. They always wear the same outfits. They each have a unique ability or power. So it's really a really perfect fit. So you get
What was Shipwreck's power then? He was just a sailor. He had a parrot. His power.
Shipwreck's power was attracting sailors. I don't know. I don't really remember.
He'd make a tattoo on his chest dance or something.
Exactly. He had a thick beard and a talking parrot, and that was enough for Shipwreck. That was enough. So I'm thinking
He'll sick his parrot on you.
exactly. He has a flying parrot attack, but you get 50 GI Joes and Cobras to choose from, 4-player co-op, lots of combo powers. So if you have Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, they can team up for an ultimate ninja attack. You get Roadblock and Rock and Roll for a machine gun attack. You get Flint and Lady J. They can distract the enemy by making love. I mean, it would be just a perfect.
How did I know you were going to say that? I totally saw that a mile away.
Yeah. Unlockable costumes, vehicle stages. I mean, this is 10 million units sold right on that premise alone. So that was my thought. Bring back GI Joe. And I guess with the release of the movie this summer, there is going to be a GI Joe game, but that's not the direction I want the series to go.
Hopefully it won't be too bad. I mean, I've seen some pictures. It looks like a kind of a third person, like Gears of War light, emphasis on the light. But who knows? Who knows? It could be okay. We'll give it a shot. Anyway, I mean that doesn't sound too bad, Tim, except maybe for the GI Joe part. But other than
Nice.
Speaking of other games, this has totally nothing to do at all with what you were just saying. But a game that I really liked a lot that was also in the PS2 era was Getting Up: Contents Under Pressure. Did you guys ever try that? Anybody here play that besides me?
No, you're alone on that one, I think.
Yeah, okay, I figured.
Brad. I'm sorry, but on this show we will refer to it by its full name, Mark Echoes Getting.
Yeah, we got to give Mark his props.
Okay. Well, anyway, the game, it had a great premise, sort of, I guess. It was about a person who was a graffiti artist, and he was living in kind of a dystopian society, sort of, where the police were like really cracking down on those taggers, and they were, trying to clean up the inner city. But the gist of it was that it had a lot of kind of Prince of Persia-ish gameplay, but instead of having these ruined palaces and these weird, underground levels and stuff, it was just in a city. I mean, you had chain link fences, you had overpasses, you had trains, you had high-rise buildings and so forth, and you were still doing the kind of parkour, kind of urban, wall climbing thing. And I really liked the setting, and I really liked kind of the little slice of reality. I'm not going to say it was a a realistic game, but I really appreciated that they really approached it from this is a kid in a city and this is kind of what he's doing. I mean, you would shimmy up walls and you would like, climb little ivy to get up to where you needed to go, or you would go through, try to jump on a train track when the train wasn't there to get where you wanted to go. And it was really cool. I liked just the juxtaposition of gameplay into a setting where I could actually see that being a real setting. I don't think developers these days really implement enough real world in their games, and that's always one of my favorite things. I love playing a game where it actually makes sense, or you could actually like really imagine that happening. And you don't need to have like a bunch of car crashes or aliens to make it really thrilling. I mean, I think you could have some really gripping gameplay just in the real world if people would kind of go that route. I mean, I can remember one of my favorite all-time moments in a game was in, I think it was Shenmue, the first one, when you needed to have matches. And in Ryu's house, he has like a little shrine that he would pray at. And I'm like, at the time, well, I'm not going to get too into it, but let's just say that I know a few things about Asian culture. Anyway, I'm like, well, if this was real life, I would certainly find matches at the shrine because that's where they're kept. And in the game, I went there, and lo and behold, there was matches at the shrine. And I'm like, man, that's fucking awesome that I could do this real-world bit of knowledge that actually applied to the game. It just really blew my mind, and it was so cool. So to me, Contents Under Pressure, Mark echoes getting up Contents Under Pressure, was nice because I could, you see these videos of these guys doing parkour, and you're like, man, that's so awesome that the way they do that. And I think they should give that another shot. I would love to see that same kind of style, but remove all the crappy combat that killed it the first time around, and you don't even necessarily have to have like the oppression of the state kind of thing going on. Just kind of make it, urban exploration. I think there's a lot of potential there.
Who's he even fighting actually in that game?
It's like the riot cops and stuff. Like somebody sees you spraying something on a wall and they call the cops, and they're trying to bust all the graffiti artists and everything. It's a little cheesy and over the top, but I think the game itself wasn't too bad. I would love to see it done properly, though. Really.
Isn't that kind of what Mirror's Edge is, though?
Yeah, but they, I haven't played through Mirror's Edge, but they do the parkour thing. But number one, I'm not a fan of the first-person movement in that. I played a little bit of it, and I just wasn't really into it. And Getting Up was third-person, which I think works perfectly for a platformer. And again, in Mirror's Edge, they had the whole dystopian police state kind of thing. And I mean, I don't know why they necessarily go to that as their kind of go-to setting for their game, but I don't think it's really necessary. I don't think you need to kill cops or fight cops or be on the run from somebody all the time. I think there's more to explore there.
And would you keep the tagging up element?
That was fine. I mean, the tagging was fine. It kind of gave you a goal because when you saw a really high billboard, you're like, oh, I can spray that. And part of the fun was just trying to figure out how to get up there. You hop on a rusted car, jump from the car to a gate, walk along the top of the gate. You go on the outside of like a fire escape on a building, and then you hop on an underpass and get up to the thing. And it was really rewarding when you did it. And it was almost like you could almost see yourself doing that in real life. If you didn't have a fear of like falling 50 feet to your death, onto a freeway or something. But I think there's potential there for sure.
Anyone else have a game they want to mention before we move on?
Sure. I also wanted to mention Metal Combat: Falcon's Revenge for the SNES, which was one of the few original games created for the Super Scope 6. Did anyone actually own a Super Scope 6 other than myself?
Negative.
No.
Never had one.
No,
so it was the light gun, right? The light bazooka, correct?
Yeah, it was the bazooka. That's correct. Yeah, I mean, it was funny too because for a time there, it seemed like light guns were going to take off pretty big there because then the Genesis got on board and created the Menacer, but then they both sort of just died off and never quite took off. But the great thing about it was this one game that came out of it, or two games actually, was Battle Clash was the first one, and then it was so not popular that when they created the sequel, they didn't even bother to call it Battle Clash 2. They just called it something else, which I think was they were trying to capitalize on the popularity of Mortal Kombat by calling it Metal Combat. Ha ha ha. But the funny thing is, it was actually a really great game, and it's actually one of my all-time favorites. And the best way to describe it, actually, it's really odd, but it's actually like Punch-Out basically with a light gun. And instead of boxers, you're dealing with these giant, mecha robots, and you're just sort of battling it out in this sort of one-on-one battle, one-on-one atmosphere. And one of the couple of amazing things about it was the sprites in that game were huge, just absolutely they filled the entire screen, and they were just bright, well animated, um, and really looked great. And the gameplay was really different. First of all, I mean, I love the concept of having a bazooka, first of all, which is something I think should be definitely revisited, because first of all, the bazooka is very versatile. I mean, you can use it as a sort of a pseudo assault rifle, can sort of act as a sniper rifle, and as a bazooka itself, it's got a kind of a different feel and a different vibe to it when you're sort of shooting things down, and you sort of need to time it a little bit better. And Metal Combat really took full advantage of that. When you're fighting the enemies, you could charge it up, you could charge up the attack, fire it off, and just you had to memorize the patterns, you had to find secret weaknesses in the enemies, and it was just a great game in my mind, and I would love to see them go back and redo that. And two other things that were really interesting about it also was that it had a co-op feature where one guy would pilot the robot and the other guy would shoot, and that's a great concept in of itself right there, right? I mean, it was kind of silly in the game because basically you're moving left to right, so the pilot really didn't have much to do to begin with, and all the work was done by the gunner. And then the other element that they had was really experimental, was that there was there was a versus mode as well. So one guy actually controlled the robot on screen while the other guy shot at him. So both were two really great ideas. I'd love to see them revisited and perhaps done in a 3D, and again with a new bazooka accessory or something to that effect.
So, Chi, would you also have the Metal Combat robots opening a school in an inner city and going around in an open world to kind of recruit students and stuff?
Yeah.
How would that work exactly?
Sequel, dude, man. Yeah, the sequel.
We have to end on that. My gosh. All right. Sorry. Well, to our listeners, we'd like to know what lousy games or disappointing games would you like to bring back? We'll open up a thread on the message boards and have you chime in, and we'll read your ideas on a future show. We'll take a break now. When we come back, our deep dive into the world of game pricing. Stay with us. Well, it is difficult to enjoy this hobby of ours without spending some money. And for gamers who buy used games, there are two new choices, Amazon.com and Toys R Us. They're both selling used games. Publishers aren't very happy about this, but Brad, you're not so sure that they have much of a leg to stand on.
Yeah, Tim, that's really correct. Over the last couple of weeks, we've heard a lot of grousing from publishers, and also a lot more from developers lately about how used games is really undercutting their profit, and it's really hurting their ability to stay in the business. Now, I do think that they have a little bit of a point. And for those of you who are not aware, whenever a used game is sold, the developer or the publisher doesn't get any cut of that whatsoever. The only sale they make any money off of is when they sell a new copy. So keep in mind that a huge portion of games are sold, primarily at GameStop or whatever. Anytime any one of those used games gets sold, they don't get a thing from it. So I can understand that they would not want, to miss out on all these profits. But at the same time, I think the developers are also really responsible for kind of screwing themselves. Now let me explain. So first of all, I think $60 is too expensive for most average people to buy on a regular basis. I know that there was a lot of talk when we switched to the new generation of consoles that, because of the HD requirements, a lot more content needed to be generated, the new graphics, longer time of development, blah, 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 blah. It's going to have to cost $60 to get a new game so they can help recoup their costs. Okay, I think that is completely wrong from the get-go. A lot of games I've played in this new generation are in no way justifying a $60 price point. And quality concerns aside, if you need a certain amount of profit to survive in the market, you can't just keep raising prices and expect the consumer to go along with you. I mean, anybody knows the higher you go, the smaller your potential sales base is going to be. And $60 is a lot of money. I mean, maybe these people who are driving the Jaguars and wear the fancy suits to work every day don't really feel the bite of $60. But I think a lot of people, especially in this economy, really think that's too much. I mean, just to give you an example, it's really, really rare for me to go into a game store and buy one game for $60. I mean, to me, that's too high. And I love games. I mean, you don't find anybody who likes games more than I do. But why should I do that when I can get, 3 or even 4 games for $60? I mean, I'm putting down the same amount of money, but I'm walking away with, 3 times the amount of games. That to me is a much better value. So I think their stubbornness to stick with the $60 MSRP is a big problem. And I think one's possible solution is with the price point. Now, recently, Gabe Newell, co-founder of Valve, the people who just recently put out Left 4 Dead, he put out an announcement, a press release saying that when they lowered the price of Left 4 Dead, starting out at $60, they lowered it down to $30. When they lowered it down to $30, they had a 3,000% increase in sales. And so the amount they sold at 50% off made more money than they did when they initially launched at $60. And I think that in itself is a real truism. That's something really important to look at.
But let me interject there just for a second. Doesn't that say more about people being more ready to buy something if they think they're getting a deal? I mean, isn't this just a sale mentality? If you think you're getting 50% off something, you're more likely to buy it. I don't know that exact example is the best test. You almost need a Valve game, a AAA Valve game, to start at $30 or $25 and see what happens with the sales from there. I'm not sure.
I don't think that makes a difference, actually, Tim. I mean, the bottom line is the market has spoken, regardless of that. Whether it's a sale or not. When people decide they want to buy at a certain price point, that's what they're saying. I mean, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think there is something to what you're saying. I mean, I think there is something to, I'm getting a deal, but I don't think there's a 3,000% increase can be strictly attributed to getting a deal. I think really what is at the heart of this, excuse me, is that Left 4 Dead was a AAA, really anticipated title that got really good reviews. And so when they lowered that, I mean, but still, there was a certain percentage of the market that simply was not convinced to pay $60 for that game. And when they lowered the price, I mean, they made so much money that it totally surpassed what they made in the first release of that game. And I think that model should be followed by other developers. If they can have similar quality, like if they can put out a similar, Left 4 Dead type product or a Tomb Raider product or something like that, and just start it at $30, I don't know anybody that wouldn't go in for that. I mean, really, let's look at the problem here. Why do people buy used games in the first place? You guys, why? Why do you buy used games? Why?
Oh, because you can't find the new ones anymore.
Okay, so save money and you can't find new ones. Okay, so when you go to GameStop or whatever, it's pretty often like the used game is only maybe like $10 cheaper than the new one most times, maybe $10 cheaper.
Yeah.
So if you put out a new game at $30, there's not really a lot of room for that game to go down. If something was new at $30, which is, usually what you pay for something used, wouldn't you just buy the new one? I mean, if it was competitively priced with the used, there's no reason to buy used in the first place, I mean, I know a lot of people, and me personally, I would be way more inclined to try a brand new game and to give that developer and publisher my money for $30 than it would be at $60. So I think that there is a really strong argument to be made there to have the publishers, instead of raising their MSRP, they need to lower it.
Yeah. I
mean, I think there's another piece of information I think is really interesting, and it's also from the Valve website. They said that when they did a 50% sale on their other titles, they had a 320% increase in sales. At a 75% off sale, they had a 70% increase in sales. I mean, those are pretty big numbers. So I think... Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, let's not kid ourselves, though. The whole point of those sales was to convince developers on how easy it is to change your prices if you put your game on Steam. I mean,
Yeah.
the number one goal of that sale was to encourage the adoption of Steam.
Yeah.
I don't think Gabe was trying
absolutely.
to. I mean, he wasn't trying to save the industry. I just wanted to make that.
No, I think you're totally right. But at the same time, I think it's a fact that in a lot of these discussions about price point and about developers not getting their money and publishers not getting their money, the consumer never enters any of those arguments. Like, you don't ever hear any developer or publisher saying, well, we're charging way too much and the consumer can't afford our product. I mean, I think that's really the heart of the matter. People cannot be expected to support the entire industry and to buy. I mean, who buys $60 of games a week or a month? I mean, most people don't. I know that I have a really good job right now, and I'm thankful to really have it in this economy, but I can't afford that amount of expenditure. I mean, I doubt most people can either. And so if you're trying to maintain sales, doesn't it make sense to reach a larger base? I mean, it seems to me that keeping the high MSRP is counterintuitive to what they need to be doing right now.
And Brad, what you said that's interesting also was that you're able to walk away with 2 or 3 games for the same price, most likely at the same store. And why is that possible when these games are supposed to be sold at $60? And the reason for that is the retailers themselves are marking these games down to begin with because the demand is not there. So whether or not the publishers and the developers themselves want to lower these prices, the reality is it happens all the time at the retail level on all these, on all these games. I make it a habit of trying to buy games that are on clearance for literally $10 a pop, and you'd be amazed at the amount of AAA titles I've purchased for only $10.
So
Yeah,
absolutely.
except that you miss out on the hype of having the newest game on the day it comes out, which gets me every time because I'm a fucking sucker.
Well, that's true, dude. That's very true. And I think that, no matter what games cost, there's always going to be a certain percentage who are going to adopt early. That used to be me, and it sounds like it's still you. And there's still a large part of a percentage of people out there who do that.
Right,
But
and
I mean,
so,
think
so-
about
sorry,
how
let me
much-
just throw in this one thing as well. Street Fighter 4, which just came out, sold amazingly well at the $60 price point as well. So it's still a possibility for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's still going to be sales regardless, but I think there would be even more sales. I mean, I can say for a fact, just anecdotally, if Street Fighter had come out at 30 or maybe even 40 instead of 60, I would already have a copy. But I don't because $60 is too much for me. And I know a number of people who are the same way. They're like, well, Street Fighter, I want it, but but $60. I mean, it seems to me like if the industry wants to keep moving forward, they need to start taking the consumers more into consideration. They can't keep going back to the same old arguments that they've had. It needs to be more of a cooperation and a partnership, especially with the current economic atmosphere. I mean, nobody wants to stop buying games, but I don't think we can keep going with this model. I think, especially with Toys R Us and Amazon getting into the used market, those people who refuse to budge from $60 are going to see their market share just drop and drop. I mean, profits are going to go down, but nobody really wants it. It doesn't help anybody to screw publishers and developers out of money. It only hurts us in the long run. You see what I'm saying?
So here's I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think it's interesting that Amazon and Toys R Us are getting into this market now, but I don't see either of them being even a fraction of what GameStop is. I don't see either of them lasting at it, so I'm not sure that they're really gonna be part of changing the nature of used game culture or not at this stage.
But I think it symbolizes the fact that used games are here to stay,
Well,
regardless.
and that's it. And the developers, I mean, I hate to be blunt about it, but they should shut the fuck up because when you sell used cars, GM doesn't get a cut of your used car sale, or if you sell used CDs in a store, the record labels don't get a cut of that money either, and they're all somehow managing to live without this money. So I don't know why game developers think they should somehow be different or that they should have some stake in this secondary market stuff.
Well, I agree with you, man. I mean, that's kind of why I'm saying this in the first place, because I don't think they should get a cut, but if they want to kind of, capture a larger percentage of the dollars that could be theirs, I think
exactly.
this would be a really sweet way to go, because if they can sidestep, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they would control their own sort of thing in a way, because like you said, that if it's at $30, then the used one's still only going to be 20 or 25 or whatever. And I tell you what, 99 times out of 100, I will pay $10 extra to not have to deal with a disc that has some fucking moron's fingerprints all over it and 75 goddamn GameStop stickers on the fucking cardboard insert that I have to peel off. I will gladly pay $10 extra not to have to deal with any of that.
Yeah.
So
Removing those stickers has become an art form.
It's
I know.
biggest like they think nobody keeps their games in nice condition or has a collection, that I want to have to fucking leave that stupid sticker on there or have the residue on it or have it tear the insert. I mean, Jesus Christ. And then they can't clean the discs when somebody turns them in, trades them in. So
I got half a chicken dinner on the underside of one of my discs one time.
I swear, yeah.
I think we've all gotten
it's just absolutely gross.
I think we've all gotten nauseous when the GameStop employee opens the drawer to pull the game out of the sleeve, and we all just we start quivering like, oh God, what's wrong? What's wrong with the game?
Yes.
Let me play the role of Johnny Business Guy and ask this question: If everyone else is charging $60, and I decide, all right, we're going to go ahead and charge $40 for this game, the obvious question that I'm asking is, are people going to ask, what's wrong with this game? It's $20 less than every other game. And I think the most recent example would be Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts. Comes out at $40. I'll admit to it, the first thing I thought was, what's wrong with it?
Yeah. I definitely think there's something to that. It's something that you would have to overcome gradually over time as the market gets used to some companies maybe releasing games at a cheaper price. At the same time, though, I can't see not trying it, because just look at this holiday season again. The newest Prince of Persia came out. It was $60, and literally within like 2 weeks, GameStop had it at what, 40 or they dropped the price. Yeah, they dropped the price like crazy just right away. So why not just release it at 40 or whatever and get the sales, right out of the gate, because people obviously ignored it at $60.
I totally hear what you're saying about, oh, this game was $60 last week and now it's $10. It must suck. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. But if we change how games are positioned, like, when Street Fighter 4 came out, I haven't heard any really bad reviews. Everybody says it's a great game. It's doing good business. So if developers would... What's that?
Cheap last boss.
Well, I've heard that, but yeah. Other than that, but if developers got used to putting out their quality games, like if Fallout 3, Fallout 3 to me is like an incredible game, like one of the best games by far I've played in like a long, long time. And yet, I know several people who would love it, but have not played it because it's $60, and it still is really expensive right now. But if that game had been launched at 30, everybody I know would already have a copy of it. So if people would just put out really good games, AAA quality games at a lower price, and just kind of get people used to the fact that cheap doesn't mean bad, I think there wouldn't be anything wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
Well, and see, I don't even have a problem. Like, Fallout 3 is a AAA title. I'll pay $60 for that. I would rather pay $50. I think it worked better when it was $50 for new games instead of $60, because I don't entirely see the $10 difference in the games I'm getting, even the great games. But, I mean, if you wanted to make AAA titles, the best of the best games, $50, and everything else $40 or $35 or whatever, I would, people are going to buy those AAA titles, so make your money on those, but quit gouging me and killing the everybody complains there's no creativity in this industry anymore because nobody wants to spend money on games that might not sell well. But when you put out a niche game or something that's not quite a AAA title but is still good and it's $60, of course it's going to get passed over. So, I mean, they're setting these things up to fail.
Sure.
Well, I agree with you there. I mean, I think it's no secret that only a small fraction of games recoup their development costs. And when you put out something that's crap on a disc at $60, I mean, you're kind of souring the market for other games that could make a stronger argument for earning that $60. So I agree with you. I think there should be, a place for niche games to go, really. Like, I mean, I would definitely pick up something like One Chanbara or whatever if it was $20. I'm not going to pay 40 or 60 for it or whatever it is, or things like that. So there should be, I think, more of a tier. Not every game gets to come in at the top. I agree with you there, Mike.
And how about exploiting the downloadable games market more, right? Let's see some of these niche games be at like the $30 price point and not have to be on a disc per se to be able to offset those costs.
Boo, boo,
Yeah.
boo.
Yeah.
But I think you're partially correct, though. I think another good strategy for publishers to sidestep the used games market, if that's what they really want to do, and it sounds like it is, if they would release a game at a lower price, let's say they put out Tomb Raider at $30, and then they just go to the download market as a way of getting direct profit. I mean, if they continue to release add-on content, I'm not saying that they should put out half a game by any means. I mean, I still want to get a complete title when I buy a title.
but that's what'll happen.
Well, it's a slippery slope, but I think the download model or DLC add-on model is a good way to sidestep some of that used game market too. But I mean, I think the first step is getting the game in people's hands.
Well, and that's one of the things that's always bothered, and that's one of the few things that bothers me about Steam is why is the Steam version of the game the same price as the version I can buy on the shelf. I mean, I'm technically getting more when I buy something off the shelf. I'm getting a box, a manual, a disc. When I buy it off of Steam, I'm getting less, honestly, although you are getting the convenience of the Steam service.
I was just going to say that. I was just
yeah.
going to say the convenience, right?
But going back to the DLC, it's interesting. We knew that Grand Theft Auto 4 was going to have 2 exclusive downloadable episodes on the Xbox before we even knew what Grand Theft Auto 4 was about. That's definitely a strategy, because it says to the consumer, hey, I better not sell this disc back because there's extra stuff coming down the pike. And it's worked really well, certainly for Grand Theft Auto 4. It's worked really well for Burnout Paradise.
But has it worked well for Grand Theft Auto 4? Because when you go into GameStop before Lost and the Damned came out, my GameStop here had like 50 or 60 copies of Grand Theft Auto 4 on the Xbox.
Well, The Lost and Damned had the highest revenue of any Xbox Live downloadable content in the history of Xbox Live. So
I just think a lot of guys traded theirs in and then went back and bought another used one when the content came out.
That's a possibility. Right?
Very, very true. I think Tim is correct, though. I think that is definitely a good strategy. I mean, that to me right there says that publishers need to change their game. They've been resting on their laurels. They've been grousing about the industry. They've been bitching and moaning that they haven't been making profits. But I don't think they're keeping up with the reality of today's game scene. I mean, the economy, rising prices, download content, electronic distribution. Publishers, they seem to be frozen in the old model, and it's not meeting anybody's needs right now. And if they're going to continue to bitch and moan the way they've been doing it, they've got nobody to blame but themselves, and that's how I see it anyway.
All right.
Yep, agreed.
Well, I think
I would just close by saying personally that I am by no means an economics major or anything like that. So this is just a common man's perception of the economics of the gaming industry. And if you happen to be someone who works in the development field or in the financial field of game development and want to come on and set us straight, please feel free to do so.
Absolutely. But be prepared to talk about the consumer, because I am sick to death of hearing reports that do not include the consumer. Guess what, guys? Without the consumer, there is no fucking games industry. Period.
Amen.
So say we all. And that'll do it for this week's podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Remember to leave your comments, thoughts, suggestions, hopes, and dreams at www.gamecritics.com. Remember, that's also where you can listen to the podcast, and of course you can download it through the iTunes Music Store. For Chi-Kong Liu, Brad Gallaway, and Mike Bracken, I'm Tim Spaeth. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.